Well, g'day hobbyists and welcome back to the Hobby Podcast, the podcast where we explore all things related to hobbies and passions from trading cards, pop culture, and everything else in between. I'm your host, Dean Alsop, and as always, I am joined by the one, the only, the king of Roval, the Colonel.
What's going on, Dino? What's happening, hobbyists?
How you going, my man?
Mate, I'm good. Rosetta has finally dropped for Flesh and Blood. We've got product in hand. I've built a new deck too, as well.
You're evolving. It's good to see.
I am involving Florian. He's an elemental. He's an elemental runebladeist, I think is what he's called.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, elemental runebladeist, but he totally different play style to what I'm used to. I've only got to play about 2 games with him because there's only been 1 session since set drop. But I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. But the card art is insane.
It looks cool, man. It looks cool. I must say, part the Mistveil and Rosetta are popping off in terms of appeal for someone like me that isn't involved in it and has none of it. I can say that the last 2 sets look really, really good.
Yeah, card art's amazing. And speaking to a lot of the players here in Melbourne, the Rosetta drop is one of the funnest set drops that Flesh and Blood have had in a really long time.
Nah, that's awesome.
So all the players are loving it. The heroes, it's not they're not meta changing, but definitely like meta evened out. Sydney Calling is on at the moment. Remember how I used to show you that there was like 5 heroes that would fill out the top 12?
Yeah.
Well, it was not the case. Sydney Calling was such an even spread.
It's because they banned a few cards in a hero, didn't they?
Cards get banned, yeah. It's in terms of hero banned, not since the last tournament I was in.
Right.
But meta shape with this latest set, there's some decks that weren't viable 6 weeks ago, and now they are again. So
that's cool, man.
It was great to see the meta change up there.
No, that's cool. That's cool. It is episode 14, which means it is a guest episode. We have an awesome guest today to cover off some really cool stuff in the TCG space and things that he's doing. But before we get there, it would be remiss of us to not mention some pretty interesting news that has come to light over the last week. And I think over the next few weeks, there will be more and more of it to come. But Metazoo.
What? What did you just say?
Metazoo has not completely sold, but it might be sold by the time this episode goes to air. No, it won't. No, that still wouldn't have happened because there has been an offer put forward. There was a bunch of offers put forward for Metazoo. And this is the top offer that has been made public. And then the board of trustees that are managing the bankruptcy have until, I think, October 8th, I think is the date, to actually go, okay, we're happy with that, we'll settle. So the offer is for $2,050,000 USD to buy all of the product, stock, IP, and everything. It is by a company called GameCubator, which is founded and owned by the 2 guys that started Magic the Gathering, and one of the guys that was the senior vice president of the Pokemon company for 20 years. So you can imagine there's a lot of talk about Metazoo right now.
You would like to think that it was going to be in pretty safe hands. Hearing the titans that are in behind it.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you learned anything from our journey in Metazoo, brother, it is just take it with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens. All right.
That sounds like a good idea.
We're going to dip into that next episode when we've got more info and there is more to talk about, because we're not going to spend a whole hour and a half speculating. So
Metazoo's back. Metazoo's back. Nah, that's a good point, Dano. Let's park it there. Why don't you throw it over and introduce our special guest for today's episode?
Well, today's guest is my brother from another mother, all the way from the East Coast, I think, in New York City, in the States, the king of sorcery, the king of art, runs quite a few Facebook groups and an awesome an awesome website called Collectors Arthouse. It is Mike Servati. How are you, brother?
Hey, man. Doing great. Happy to be here.
Quick time check. What is the time over there right now?
It is 4:53 a.m. I'm about 3/4 through my pre-workout at this point.
I love that. I love that. We'll give you a round of applause for getting up so early to chat to a couple of Aussie blokes across the pond. So we thank you very, very much for that, mate. I'm going to quickly point out the background you've got behind you there. Is that a Chimera Mechanism original art, or what is that?
Yeah, it's the original painting for Kythera Mechanism. In the early days, it was called Predestination. I think it's the first painting that I purchased in Sorcery.
That's
crazy.
So
a special one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the original, right? Like that's the only original, I guess. Like we'll delve where a real one of one, not these tops chrome printed one of ones. That's like a real one of one.
Yeah, man.
There's something else I can see up on the shelf, and I'm going to ask you about that later on because that actually isn't in the run sheet, but I definitely want to pick your brain on it because there's something I know that you've been talking about a bit lately. But we've got a ton to get through, so we're going to dive straight into it.
Mike, I can't wait to talk all things sorcery with you. But first, I want to know a little bit about you. Where did your TCG journey start?
All right, man. Well, first of all, you guys asked about the background. I wanted to show you a little something on the foreground to pay homage to your planet's mascot.
ZYZZ. I can't believe, with all the audio drama we've had in the last 45 minutes trying to get this potty off the ground, that you've managed to hide that from us until right now.
You know? Some countries have a president, some have a king, and some have an eternal God. Transcends boundaries, guys.
Lee actually asked me earlier today. He's like, how do you know Mike? And I was like, we just came across each other in the sorcery community, but the reason we've stayed mates and like have grown a relationship is because of ZYZZ. And then Lee was like, the bodybuilder? I was like, yeah. I was like, literally, ZYZZ. I was like, that was it. We just hit it off.
I don't know if he's like a meme down there or if you guys actually respect him. It's probably a mixed bag, right? Because it's kind of a cult niche community.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, and it's been a long time. It's been a long time since rest in peace since we lost him. But
obviously he made a bit of an influence on you.
Yeah. I don't know how I just stumbled upon it on YouTube one day, and I was like, this guy seems pretty cool. You know, I kind of like his style.
And now you think
I like working out and stuff too. You know, so I respected his physique. I don't know how he achieved it, but to each their own, right?
Yeah.
He'd be proud of you with the 4 a.m. wake up and the pre-workout as well.
Yeah, right. Obviously, I like passion and dedication. You know, so that's resonate on common ground there.
Yeah.
But yeah, also to clarify one thing. So I grew up in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. I'm actually living in Virginia right now, which is a couple states south. I don't know. I'm personally geographically challenged. I don't know if you guys know all the states in the U.S., but it's about 5 hours south of where I grew up.
I feel like we know most of them, but yeah, Virginia is one of those ones where like it'd be pin the tail on the donkey for me. I'd be looking at it going, I don't know, Midwest, North.
Well, it's near Washington D.C. You know, the country capital. So it's like it's East Coast. So I'm on the East Coast. And Lee, so I forgot your question already. Why don't we restart with that?
That's all right, man. We can see you talk about ZYZZ.
You got it written down.
It's all good. I wanted to know where your journey started with TCGs. What did you like growing up? What did you collect?
Yeah. Okay, so it actually ties back. I started playing Magic. You know, like most people's first introduction to TCGs. I was born in '81, so like when Magic came out, I was probably, I think I was in middle school or so, maybe 7th grade, something like that. So it started blowing up in my neighborhood. I was pretty young, you know, so I didn't have any kind of like serious collection, but I had a friend, one of my best friends, same age as me, same grade. He had an older brother that was probably a freshman or junior in high school at the time. And he kind of ran a lawn business in a neighborhood. We had a pretty large neighborhood, and you'd cut like all the lawns in a neighborhood. So he's making pretty good money at high school years, right? So he was buying Magic, like alpha, beta, by the box in those days. And he had page after page in his binder of all the Power 9, you know, like all the all the original sets, like just a stunning collection. And that's kind of what effed me for life, you know? Like I wanted to be like this guy at that time. I couldn't afford any of that. I was buying like one pack of revised here and there. You know, Legends was $10 in the store. And every once in a while you see like an alpha pack for like $15. And that was like outrageous back then, right? But yeah, this guy, like I kind of looked up to him as being a kid, him being older. You kind of look up to older people as it is, and just his collection was unreal. So I just played kind of for fun with people in the neighborhood, never like really an LGS scene per se. But then freshman year of high school, I played Magic for a few years, and then I moved from New York to Philadelphia suburbs area in Pennsylvania. So I lost like all my childhood friends, and I never played Magic again. I never played any TCG again for like 20 years.
Wow.
Until when I came back, probably a handful of years ago now, I was playing Hearthstone because it's just like easy to pick up, easy to learn, digital. I didn't have to commit to, I didn't have like friends to play a physical TCG with. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, nice. So you lost your friends at a young age, but did you lose all those cards? More importantly, do you still have those?
I still have them, but I didn't have like anything too crazy. Like I say, mostly revised cards, a few.
Yeah, but revised dual lands are still like absolute bank at the moment. Have you still got those? Or did you keep them?
I sold like I had like 15 to 20 of them. I sold them in college, when they were selling for like, I don't know, $20 to $30 a pop. That seemed like big money back then. So nothing crazy in the collection when it comes to Magic.
Hearthstone, though, let's just touch on that for a second, because that's something that I've heard about, but I honestly know nothing about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in like a nutshell, what is it?
It's kind of it plays like Magic, where it's turn-based. It's all digital. There's no physical version of the game. And the games are pretty quick. Like what's nuanced or interesting about it is the way mana works. It's not like in Magic where you kind of do it through random draw. It's every turn you get one increased mana, so your mana resource is stable and increases both sides. So that's kind of neutralized. You don't get mana screwed. Yeah, and that's part of like the strategic element of it too. You design basically the spread of your cards and your mana cost through that. And there's different, it does play similarly. Like there's aggro decks, there's control style play. It can be a little memey. There's like a ranking system too. It could be a little trollish too, like, I don't know. It's an addicting game, and you can play fast too. That's why like when I came back to it as an adult, I could sit down on the couch with my 3 kids and my wife and ignore them while they're watching TV
and just knock out a few games. Right? Yeah. Yeah. No, I can resonate with that, because I play One Piece currently, and that's kind of the same in terms of mana or resource. Like you've got your normal deck, and then you've got your resource deck, and you draw 2 resources every turn. So it's I do appreciate those kind of games, because they are a bit more fast paced, and you're building your decks around the combos that you can create out of your cards, as opposed to getting mana screwed. You know what I mean? Like not drawing any resources for 4 or 5 turns, and it just limits your ability to do things.
Right.
Did you play World of Warcraft or Warcraft as well? Is that how you got into Hearthstone, or was it different to that? Or did you just pick it up?
I think it was just like through a friend was like, hey, check out this game Hearthstone. I don't know. And then like I started just on YouTube. There's this guy Cripperian. It's like a YouTube channel. He's like really big in Diablo 2. So maybe that had something to do with it too. Like in college, I never played any kind of video game like growing up at all. Like maybe casually, like some really old school stuff in like the Nintendo era in the 80s, 90s. But then in college, like I had a friend who was into Diablo 2. So I got like hardcore into that in college, and then Diablo 3 after college. And there's this guy that's like a big YouTuber in Diablo that also got like hardcore into Hearthstone. So I think that's probably the carryover of how I heard about it.
Have you ever heard of Hearthstone, Kearns?
Yeah, it's part of the Blizzard universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. That makes sense why I don't know about it.
Yeah,
and you might know
it
about
it. It had some really impressive YouTube channels and tournament coverage too. Like you should check out. It's really polished broadcasting. I was impressed by that.
It was really interesting growing up, because I was a really big Warcraft fan. I played it like right through my childhood. But I had one of my really close friends that used to play a lot of Diablo, and I never played Diablo, never touched the game. He never played Warcraft, but we tried to convince each other the whole way through the back end of primary school and high school to play like with each. But we were just
my game's better. No, my game's better.
Seriously, we were just adamant the whole way. Like, I'm never touching Diablo. It's shit compared to World of Warcraft, you know. And he was like vice versa.
Yeah,
both of those were huge in the college years. Yep.
Yep. I can solemnly swear and put my head up and say I played none of those 3 games. I was out there playing Crash Bandicoot and Spyro on PlayStation. You know what I mean?
It's addicting. My buddy was into D2 and Warcraft, and it was funny. I came back from the from class one day, and we were in the dorms, and I found him physically destroying his Diablo 2 CD. And I was like, "Dude, what are you doing? You could sell that on eBay for like $100." And like, straight faced, looked at me, and he said, "I don't wish this evil on anybody." He was dead serious. Like, he didn't want to ruin another life by getting them into this game. That's how addicting it was.
Well, we've already delved into a couple of quality memories of yours, but is there a favorite memory surrounding collectibles? Definitely prior to your sorcery journey, because I know we're going to delve into that, and there's a lot to discuss there. But pre-sorcery, Mike, what's one of your biggest sort of collectible memories?
I mean, of course, there's the nostalgia to those childhood years. I never really thought about this question, but I mean, what immediately comes to mind is just like, I grew up in a great neighborhood. I had great, really close friends, you know, several best friends in the neighborhood, tons of kids in my neighborhood. So I was really tight with them. I'd play with them every day. We'd do mostly outdoorsy stuff, but you know, I guess as it relates to TCGs, a few of them, just thinking back on trading, playing, we'd play in my buddy's basement that I was telling you about. And since he had an older brother, like, he would just drop the chaos orb on us and these insane, like, you know, take 2 turn cards and just absurd stuff. So we'd do group play, and we'd be afraid to attack him because he would just, it was kind of funny. He had kind of like a snarky attitude, or just kind of like a little sly. And he was like, "You sure you want to do that? You know? You sure you want to attack me?" And just be like, "Nah, I'm good."
So it was like Commander.
Was kind of, just in awe, you know, by the power, right?
Yeah. So did you ever collect Pokemon or anything as well? Like, was that in your sort of era, or you managed to just kind of skip all that pretty much?
Yeah, no, growing up, never. Like, when I was in college, I think, or just starting college when it came out in 99, I think it was, and it was put out by WotC, you know. So it's kind of funny story there. I was like, well, shit, like, if I had bought early Magic, I'd be rich, right? So like, I went on eBay and I bought a box of the base set Pokemon, and like, I think like 2 complete sets, just short of 2 complete sets.
Yeah.
And then back in like the COVID era, you know, things were popping off, and I think I heard like Gary V, you know, saying like, "Oh, collectibles are going nuts, everything's insane." So I was like, "Oh, I think I got some of those pocket monsters in my toy chest in my parents' house," right? So like, I completely forgot it exists. I actually had no idea that Pokemon existed back in like 2018, 2020 timeframe. I bought this in 1999. It's like one of those stories that's too good to believe, right? I literally had no clue it even existed because I was completely out of the scene. And I was like, I think I got one of those boxes. So I looked at it and I was like, I didn't know what Base Set Unlimited was. I knew absolutely nothing about Pokemon. And I looked it up online, and the box was worth $8,000, you know? And it started screaming higher and higher. I think it got to like 15 or 20 grand. I was telling my parents, I was like, you know, you've been holding this gold in my toy chest for 20 years. And they're like, "Yeah, I think you should give me 50% as a storage fee." But, I was just like shocked. And I started speculating a little bit on Pokemon, you know, and Flesh and Blood and stuff. And then Sorcery came along.
Did you ever sell that box then?
I still got it. Yeah,
still got it.
You know, I got a weird thing where like I just hoard like a bunch of stuff. I rarely sell anything of my own.
Tell you what, Mike, I'll make you a once in a lifetime offer. I will 4x what you paid for that box in 1999.
I think I paid like $150. I'm telling you, for like
sweet
box.
I'll give you $2,000. I'll give you $2,000 for it right now. Absolute deal. Pokemon doesn't even exist anymore. Don't even worry about it.
Did you guys grow up with it?
Yeah.
A year into it?
Yeah, that was pretty much that was the game. That was the game. I honestly didn't know a game like Magic the Gathering existed until probably 2020. Maybe a little bit before that, but growing up in for me, it was all Pokemon. There was Yu-Gi-Oh that was around as well, but nobody that I was in circles with anyway. We talked about Magic the Gathering. That just sort of wasn't, a trading card game that was in our scene, I guess. And then it was definitely in my adult years when I'd sort of come across Magic for the first time. Now I actually really love Magic the Gathering. But yeah, similar to your story where you knew about Magic and you didn't really knew Pokemon existed beyond sort of 1999. Mine was the opposite, where I didn't even know Magic existed and it was all Pokemon.
And then
it's all about what you grew up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, my mum was a massive Michael Jordan collector. So she used to collect a lot of NBA cards. And then we would go down to the market every fortnight, and it was Pokemon for me as well. And I remember at one stage I had over probably 30 base set Charizards. And you just trade in because you're a kid. You just want to collect the set. So you trade Charizard for a few cards. But I was never allowed to play with my cards. I was allowed to play with my doubles. So
second set.
Yeah, my second set. So my first set for the first probably 7 Pokemon sets is immaculate, never touched, out of packet. And that was instilled from a young age. But for me, it was always Pokemon and also a little bit of Digimon. Because Digimon was quite similar to Pokemon, I much was more drawn to that than Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball.
Digimon's one of those things though where had the little Digimon
Tamagotchi.
The Tamagotchi thing they had, but never really the cards.
You would have neglected the shit out of your Digimon.
It's crazy to think though, because Mike, you said you were born in 1981, right?
Yep.
I was born in 1988. So there's only 7 years difference there. But the fact that within those 7 years, I can grow up with one game and basically think that another one doesn't exist. And you grow up with one game and think another one's extinct. It's pretty crazy. It's not that the world doesn't change that much.
A decade earlier, it was all baseball cards was my thing. And now I could care less about baseball.
You got any cool baseball cards?
NFL. No. I like the NFL. I don't pay any attention to baseball. I still got the old cards, but that was junk wax era. The 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie was the card. So another memory, I remember going in a card shop and I was telling my dad, I was like, hey, I want to get this one. Because I knew the value, even younger, I wasn't into investing in cards, right?
Yeah.
But I knew the value kept going up and up, and it was $10 or something. And he was like, what? He was like, that's ridiculous. And then it went up to 50. And I was like, I told you, right? So I had these roots where I had the friend with the older brother that had this massive valuable collection that blew up, and the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards that I'm getting back to as an adult, and then the Pokemon blows up. I was like, maybe I'll speculate a bit in some of these newer games, see what happens for the old time nostalgia's sake, right?
Mike, you and I are going to talk off camera, and I'm going to do your wife a favor, and I'm going to try and pry a few things from your hands so that you've create more space and stop hoarding so much. Because it sounds like you got some stuff that I really want.
All right, sounds good.
All right, well, I think it's time we probably dive into sorcery. It's been an absolute behemoth since inception on Kickstarter in 2022. So it's a game that I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed playing and collecting. I think it's got a long, prosperous future. But I think it's safe to say, from a worldwide perspective, you're probably at the forefront and the leader in terms of content creation, information, and even from an influencer standpoint. So really, really excited to sort of delve into that. But the first question, I guess, is how did you even find out about sorcery? And then when you did see it or come across it the first time, what actually drew you into it?
That's a funny story too, because there's these guys in Flesh and Blood scene called the Art House Syndicate, and I was kind of friendly with them back then. We were both into art, so I respected that they created this Facebook page dedicated to art, and they're like, hey, you got to check out this art in this game Sorcery. And I think I saw Dan Seagrave's Seer and maybe the Elemental Avatars by Severin Pinu like there's a handful of artworks that really just kind of like strike you right away.
Yeah,
I think that's like what the initial appeal is for a lot of people. They see the art and they're like, wow, what is this? I want to see more. And then you start learning about the gameplay and stuff. And then if you play games, it's got a great game design as well that's pretty compelling. So I think it was really the art that really drew me in and then directed me to the official Discord. And in those days, I think the official Discord started in like September or October of 2021. And I joined like maybe 2 weeks after it started. So it was very small. I think there's 8,000 people in it now. But back then it was maybe 50 or 100. It was tiny. I was one of the first people in there. And Eric, the creator of the game, was super active in there. So it was really cool. Like he was starting this game. And like, actually, I before I got back into TCGs, I didn't know Discord existed either.
Me either. Yeah, we share that. We share that. I still don't know how to use it. I still barely know how to use it, Mike. I'm in your Discord and I still don't even know what to do. I go in there and clear notifications every now and again, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm kind of limited myself, even though I have one. I have a couple moderators that keep me in check. But yeah, so I joined and like Eric was engaging with people a lot. So I thought it was like really cool that we can pick the brain of the creator. And I didn't know who Eric was at the time either. So I kind of looked into his background and I saw he was one of the 3 founders of Grinding Gear Games, which created Path of Exile, which I never played, but I knew was very similar to Diablo 2. Like I was telling you guys, I was into that in college. So I thought that was cool. And then I started learning that he was like my friend's older brother that had this insane Magic collection. And it wasn't quite the same thing because he was very successful and got wealthy and bought all the cards when they were expensive and he could afford it. But he has like the highest grade Magic collection for all of the alpha cards. And also he showed me like this insane artist proof collection that he has because he knew I was into art, right? So it was a lot of fun in those days. A lot of the early adopters were super passionate about it. There's a lot of art enthusiasts and hardcore game enthusiasts that were helping them play test. And the game was very raw in those days. You know, there's a lot of broken cards and it wasn't quite ready for Kickstarter. And they really matured it tremendously over like the subsequent 6 months or so before it went to market.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, but it does the Kickstarter campaigns for games that I have been involved in the most part. A lot of them do run a Discord, so it doesn't surprise me that they had one. But that's the hardest part. Like I know there's a couple of games that have had either Discords or Patreons before they've even gone to Kickstarter, and finding out about it that early is like, it's borderline impossible, right? Like you said, sort of it was through somebody else that sort of introduced that to you, so you got in there on that proper ground level, because people think like Kickstarter's the ground level, but 9 times out of 10 there's a level right before it even goes to Kickstarter, and that's sort of where you can find these unique play testing cards and, you know, first like pre-sample samples and all that kind of stuff. Did they ever reward anybody that was early in that Discord with anything, you know, as like early adopters prior to Kickstarter or anything like that?
There were a few opportunities, yeah, because they were trying to spark engagement, go to Discord and things. So they came out. Have you guys heard of the Relentless Crowd promo card?
Yes. Yeah, another one.
There's only 100 printed. Like they announced that there'd only be 100 of these, and they had some engagement-based incentives, like take a picture of yourself. So in the early days, they had these print files you could get in Discord that had like, not the entire set, because the entire set wasn't even done yet. The alpha Kickstarter set, they had maybe, I don't know, 150 to 200 of the cards ready, and you could play it on Tabletop Simulator, or you could print out their print files and you could physically play. So if you took a picture physically playing the game, they would give you one of these Relentless Crowd promo cards. And they also did like a Q&A where if you submitted questions, like Eric's selected his favorite question. I got lucky and he picked my question for that. So I got one of those that way.
What was the question?
A little later on, I think I'm trying to think. It was hilarious because I was like super active back then, and I submitted like 20 questions.
Yeah, okay.
It was like me and like a handful of guys like submitted all the questions.
Yeah,
and he answered like 5 of them. But I think I want to say what it might have been is I asked him about like he liked that I made this analogy of Grinding Gear games compared to Sorcery, and kind of like how it came to market. Because when I was researching his background, I saw he did some interviews, right? And he talked about, as an entrepreneur, it's often best to not completely radically innovate, but take someone else's idea and innovate off of that idea, like make something nuanced or new about it, something that's already successful, right? Instead of recreating the wheel. So with Grinding Gear Games, he did that with Path of Exile. They took Diablo 2, similar dungeon crawler type game, and the innovation, I think, was how you could, like, the in-game market, how you could buy items and upgrade your gear and stuff, was kind of like a money engine for the game. So similarly, Sorcery, he started with a very Magic-based similar concept, and he innovated on that. So there was a question to that effect that I drew an analogy to, and also the fact that when he started Grinding Gear Games, he was like right out of college, and he didn't have any money, right? So he was hungry and needed to be successful. He was all in on it. He was from Sweden. He moved down to New Zealand, and he spent like years before it came to market. So I was like, well, now you're wealthy, you got all this money. You're able to commission 400 paintings out of pocket before you even go to Kickstarter. How invested in this are you? Like, are you committed to keeping it alive, or what's to say you won't just get bored and walk away? Or if it struggles, you're out, are you in for the long haul? So he kind of addressed that, and he called it like a passion project. And you could tell he's really into it. Obviously, he likes
belter, absolute belter of a question though. Like that is like, pinning someone up to the cross, going, "Hey, well, you've spent all this money. Are you actually going to hang around, or are you going to dip?" And we'll delve into that a little bit more a bit later too, because I got a question that I think leads into that.
I just wanted to, with the 400 original art prints, like I was quickly doing some like math in my head of just how expensive that would be. Like getting traditional art done is you would say it's, compared to digital art, it's a lot more expensive. But getting 400 of them done up front, like that would have been a massive outlay before we'd even gone to Kickstarter.
And leasing some from the Frank Frazetta estate as well would have probably cost a pretty penny, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and that seemed to have come later, but by the time they went to Kickstarter, they had a full set, 403, and actually there was more than 403 paintings, because as I was researching, I got really into the history of the game, the early development, even pre-alpha, and I made all these connections with the artists, right? So I started asking them about their artwork, and I started like scraping all their social media and building my website with all the full art, original art images, and I started finding a lot of examples of artwork or card titles that were commissioned from two different artists. So there's probably like, I don't know, I'd say 30 to 50 paintings with the same title as an alpha card that is not used in the game yet. So he probably commissions something on the order of like up to 450 paintings. And if they cost like, let's say $1 to $2 grand a pop, he's $500,000 to $1 million in that range invested in the game before even taking it to Kickstarter. So that's why I say it's like a unicorn project between the fact that the 100% commitment to original artwork and just the viability of someone out there being able to invest like $1 million in startup costs and risk it all. And one of the most riskiest entrepreneurial endeavors you can go after, TCGs, right? That almost always fail.
Oh, yeah.
I heard you mention before that the art was something that drew you in from the start. And when I think about like your story with Magic the Gathering, there's lots of fantasy style art. It's what you grew up with. And then Sorcery, in terms of like relative TCGs, probably the most similar in terms of that fantasy style. Do you see any other TCGs out there at the moment that are kind of doing what Sorcery is doing at the moment? Or do you think it's a real lone wolf in the market?
With regard to the full commitment to traditional hand-painted art, it's the only one that I know of. I know there was like a Warlords reboot. I think it's called Warlords CCG. I haven't looked into it that much, but I noticed they commissioned Jeff Menges, who was an alpha artist. It's also in Sorcery. So they're doing a lot of hand-painted traditional. Most games are doing largely digital, so that was one of the unique appeals of Sorcery and differentiators for sure. And just stylistically, it's intended to be kind of like a throwback homage to the golden era of fantasy art in the mid 90s. So stylistically too, it's got that. Magic is the best comparison art wise, and Magic does a lot of digital, but there's still many artists that also still do traditional hand painted as well.
Yeah, because I play a lot of Flesh and Blood, and that's what I collect at the moment. And for me, it was the connection to World of Warcraft. That was where I kind of pulled nostalgia from some of those cards. I really just like the artwork through that. But I know that majority, if not all of that, is digital artwork. You know, we were quite fortunate, got to spend a lot of time with some of those artists from Flesh and Blood and got to meet them in the flesh, which was really cool. But
that's a pun.
I would have missed that one. But in terms of the hand traditional art, because for me sorcery is really new. It's not a TCG I've been really heavily involved in. That's really Dean's remit. But you know, looking into it, obviously excitement around the next set that is coming up. It's, you know, I'm a collector. I can see the value in that, and the artwork itself is something that's really starting to appeal to me from that front, which is quite cool. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, is I love talking about stories, and I feel like sorcery has so many great stories. And there was one of them that I actually saw on one of your podcasts when you interviewed Tony. He's an artist. You know, there was a part in that where he wasn't working in the art scene for about 30 years, and sorcery is what brought him back. What's it like being that person that's able to share those stories and talk that? Because as a viewer, that is so cool to see. And do you just kind of pinch yourself sometimes with those?
Yeah, you know, actually that's what started everything, because I think you know, I think like the artwork is really important in card games, because without it, I mean, it's just cardboard. It's very simple. You know, if you didn't have good artwork, there's nothing like memorable about it, right? There's the in-game play experience, but you're not going to remember the card per se. You might resonate with the title, but like as I got back into it after being away from Magic all those years, it's kind of like the play experiences, but also like the artwork is what you remember about the card. And when you see it, you get a feeling from it, you know? So when I started getting back in and I started seeing Shivan Dragon and Icy Manipulator, and like Fork was like a great card that I loved from like the red burn decks I would play. It just like, it gave me a certain feel. Right. So I think, and then so what happened was I just like, the artists seem to be accessible somehow in sorcery. And I think, I forget like who the first artist was that I contacted, or how, I think I just like took it upon myself to say like, hey, like, this is cool. There's a lot of, it was the Magic artists originally, right? And I was like, there's these same artists that did those cards that I just mentioned, like Melissa Benson did Shivan Dragon. I had a bunch of Jeff Menges cards, Drew Tucker, all this stuff. And I was like, wow, like these guys are still around. I remember they did these cards when I was a kid that I loved and made connections with friends with. I want to reach out to them and do interviews with them. And I wasn't doing any kind of YouTube stuff. Like I honestly didn't even know how to use YouTube. I didn't know how to create a website. Like I didn't know what a website domain was, or like even like I did like a project in freaking college like 20 years ago, but I had like no clue how to even start a web page. But I was like, you know, these artists are busy, you know, they're like celebrities. I looked at them as like gods, you know, like they're like celebrities, right? I was like, they're not going to want to talk to me on camera, and it's like super awkward. I'm not going to get on camera myself. That's absurd. So I was like, I'll create a website and I'll do like a written Q&A. So I'll submit like a dozen questions, and then I'll write it up and I'll do the research, asking them who their influences are, and I'll learn a lot by art through that process. Yeah. So I created the collectorarthouse.com website, and then I started building all these connections with the artists, and and I started learning a lot about their backgrounds and who they are as people, right? And Tony had that cool story where he got out of art. There was a lot of fallout in the early days with WotC. When that company ran into issues, they fired a lot of these artists. And Tony was he was a guard at a jail. He corrected me one time. I called him like a prison guard. He's like, no, Mike, it wasn't a prison. It was a jail. And I was like, you're still tough to me, man.
Isn't that the same thing? I mean, that's the same thing in Australia, prison and jail.
I guess prison's like larger and more hardcore, I guess. But it was kind of funny because I was just like amazed that he still had like, I was like, dude, these paintings you're doing for sorcery looks like you haven't stopped for 30 years. Like, it's absolutely incredible, the quality of it. And he was like, oh, thank you very much. He was very humble. And he's like, since he had that bad experience with WotC, he like hates them. And he's like super into sorcery and very excited and proud of his work, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful artwork. Shout out to all the artists. Dead set. Like, there isn't a single card that I've pulled out of even like, you know, the towers, you know, like the land cards and stuff. Like I'm just like, these just look nuts.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But that story's pretty wild. Like imagine being burned by a company and then being like, F this, I'm not doing this. And then 30 years later, another game kind of sparks your interest enough for you to come back in. That kind of speaks volumes to Sorcery and what it's doing.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things too where it's like never give up on your dreams or what you enjoy doing. You know, 30 years working a normal job and then comes back and he's doing what he loves now. Like it's really inspiring to see as well.
Yeah, he probably would have seen some things as well, being a jail guard too. That can, you know, lift the art a little bit, like if he has to do some gory stuff or anything like that. Yeah. But Mike, tough question. Maybe not, because I know you're pretty smooth on the mic. But when you're explaining sorcery to people that have never heard of it before, how do you go about selling what it is to them?
Well, I think I start with the artwork because that's, you know, my
passion,
my primary interest category. What sold me on it first, and I think that is like a great catch. You know, the like as I said, a unicorn project, and that is 100% dedicated to hand painted traditional art. And like you're never going to see this again, I don't think, in my opinion, where you're going to have like someone that has the financial means to make that commitment and, you know, take a huge risk with the long release cycle. To just YOLO. I mean, like if the game fails, he's all right financially, right? Which is a double-edged sword, right? So is he committed or not? But I think like Eric is like living out his dream. Just like I wanted to interview the artist, he's doing it on a grand scale where he gets to commission hundreds and hundreds of paintings, and he collects paintings himself too, and like these highly collectible cards. He's designing it. He likes to play games too, so he gets to design a great game. But yeah, I would say like the art, but then also the gameplay itself is super compelling, and the attention to detail and design of the game is awesome. Like when you look at the cohesiveness of the card title, the illustration, the type line text, the game mechanic, how it plays, and sometimes the flavor text. They don't all have flavor text, but they are all like synergistic, right? And it's really, you appreciate the art more if you play the game. Some people knock me and say like, Mike, you don't even play. Well, you know, like I was like, so I always got to explain myself. I was like, I got 3 little kids. I got limited time. You know, I got to pick what I do with my time. There's an opportunity cost everything. Yeah. But I have played the game, right? So I can tell you that when you play the game, it really takes it to another level because you really appreciate that synergy of how the illustration matches the title and how it works in the game. So it's very flavorful and fun. And the grid-based design is also super creative and adds a whole new dimension.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a funny story with that, too, because when I found out it was grid-based, I almost, like, dismissed it out of hand. I was like, oh, man. I was like, that's kind of whack, you know? Like, I was like, I've never played a grid-based game. They all have failed.
It's genius.
I was like, but then, like, it became actually something special and something that I loved about the game as I actually played it. And I was, like, super impressed with the multi-dimensional aspect of how things happen underwater, above ground, airborne, you know, and just like spatially on the board. It just takes it to a whole nother level. And if you're in the strategy and experiential play, I mean, it's very unique, I think, in that regard.
Totally. Like, especially leaning off what you just said there, the spatial portion of it and being grid-based. And I remember saying to Kernsey or other people that, like, how I've sold it as a game to play, I'm like, do you like trading cards, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you like chess? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, this is kind of a mix of both. Realistically, like the way you play it, it's not about like who can do something faster or get to their big card quicker. You actually need to... You're playing 2 games at the same time because you're playing a little bit of chess with your lands and figuring out your path to be able to go to where you need to go to get to it, what you need to get to, or to be able to protect what you need to protect. And then you've got all your minions and your beasts and all that, you know, are going to do the damage and hopefully win you the game. But then above that or beyond that, you can then play above the grid or below the grid or on the grid. Like, it's just it's a really, really fun game. I think, I love it. I love it. I love
You
the
know
way it
what?
plays.
I got to work on my elevator pitch because that was pretty smooth what you did just there. Like maybe I got to be like, you got to clear your schedule for about 20 minutes here. We're going to talk about this. Yeah, I get really excited and I want to keep like going on, and I could, but I guess I'll leave it at that. I think
No, but
between the
look,
two of us,
the art is a great place to start though, because I've never experienced a TCG box opening quite like Sorcery. I had no intention of opening anywhere near as much as I did. I just couldn't stop myself, to be fair.
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think that's because of the collectible nature with the curios and things, or just like the art, or what? That's a common thing. Like people say the box opening experience is amazing. I'm wondering why that is for different folks from different.
I think
backgrounds.
it's the number of packs in an alpha box for starters was brilliant. I think it was 39 packs. But even at a like Altered just came out, another TCG, a Kickstarter TCG, and that's 37 packs. And it's the closest opening experience I've had from a card game since Sorcery came out 2 years ago. Probably because they've sort of emulated that a little bit. I think you've got more packs to open. But again, the curio chase was fun because it's insanely difficult. It's not, apart from like a couple of the sketch curios that are blatantly obvious when you pull them out, it's actually not that easy to differentiate a curio from the normal variant of a card. So Kearns, a curio is basically like a super secret rare alt art kind of version of a card. But for me, honestly, Mike, I think it's the foils. The way they do their foil cards is unlike any other game's ever done. And I think the fact that it's not the way that like cards have full foil like Sorcery cards do on the front. They have raised text boxes and etching like Sorcery cards do on the front. What they don't do is sacrifice the entire branding integrity of the game and replace the back of the trading card with the entire full art image, which blew my mind. The first time I saw it, I was just like, these guys get it. This is it. Like that. I think that's what it is. It's for me. It's for the box opening experience in total was chasing those foils and not knowing which one I was going to get to actually just enjoy and inherit the full art aspect on the back of the card.
Yeah. There's two things. There's a couple points I want to make on that. So in the early days, like Eric was like truly old school Magic. He wanted to make this game a throwback to the '90s, right? So he was pretty much like anti-foil. Like initially he was saying there's going to be no foils in this game. But that evolved, and I think based on feedback from the community and some of the early employees he picked up, he realized that, the modern sensibilities, people want foils, right? So he's like, all right, I'm going to go hardcore. Every single card's going to have a foil, right? And then I was like, initially, I was like crushed by that because like he told us what the pull rates were. We kind of figured it out based on how much sold at Kickstarter, and I was like, oh man, there's no chance in hell I'm going to have like a full set of the foils, which is devastating for me because I want all the full arts, right? And I was like begging him. I was like, dude, you got to put out like a fantasy art set. Like Frazetta has one and Boris Vallejo. I mean, just sell it for like $100 to us that like are broke and like enjoy art and let us enjoy all the art, like then you have something for collectors and like he didn't want to dilute collectability. So he didn't do that. But I think, a couple things on that, like there's the rare pull of the foils, but I think like something really clever with the curios that is often lost nowadays is that when we were coming into the alpha Kickstarter era, they said nothing about curios. We knew nothing about what it was. They said it would be a homage to early development of the game, and they said that it'll be very nuanced in some cases and very hard to detect. Like you won't know unless you're looking closely. You won't know that it's a curio, which I thought was brilliant and genius for this project specifically, because that meant you had to scrutinize all of the text on every card and all of the art intricacies too, because sometimes there was like small nuances in the artwork itself,
like the egg.
So
Devil's Egg is a good example.
to art, yeah, and so dedicated to the design cohesion, like I was explaining, is now forcing you through this chase mechanism to really study every card and get a full appreciation for how it's designed and the artwork nuances. So that was really cool. And then you had, given that full art, that introduced a new unique nuance where the artist knew what the design template was, and they would often put Easter eggs behind the text box. So you'd get the foil and you'd see the artwork a certain way, and then you see the back of it, and then you see like on the original painting there was something that shows up intentionally hidden because they knew it wouldn't show up on the text box. And
Yeah.
it also adds balance to the piece, right? Otherwise you have like a more vertically large painting and then kind of like this negative void space below. And then if you own the painting, like you see on Kythera Mechanism, there's that void space at the bottom. That it looks okay now that it's framed, but it's not perfectly centered and balanced. Some artists hide an element at that bottom where the text box goes. So then when you own the original, you kind of discover more.
That's pretty cool, because then, like, I guess when Eric's commissioning these artworks, he's like, these are just full-length artworks. Like, at some point, the entire image is going to be seen. So it kind of eliminates, I guess, the empty void, but also can probably inspire them putting a particular Easter egg, like you said, where the text box is, so that it can be realized on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Does that inspire the style of cards where there's like a lot of sorcery cards very central? You think about something like Fab has art like right across the card, but sorcery, because I was going through your website and I was looking through all the cards, I'm like, just looks like it's like a centerpiece and the background's not as prominent in sorcery, or am I just way off the mark on that one?
I think it depends on what card. I think.
Yeah, and I think the artists like started picking up on that more so, like, because a lot of the I mentioned like my initial draw was the Magic artists that I grew up with as a kid, but then I got really excited about discovering new emerging artists, and a lot of those artists have never done a TCG ever before, right? So like some of the more experienced artists kind of knew about the templating and the balance of like how to make the art concept balance with the text box very well. And they didn't really think to do the Easter egg type thing. But I think now with Arthurian Legends, the ones that are returning have some experience with that, and they're probably doing that more. So that's kind of cool. And then back to the foils too. The foils are stunning, So initially he wanted to do no foils, but then he went all in, and I think like Eric really put like huge design commitment into the foil masking. So it's not like some games will just do like a generic or like full rainbow mask, over the full foil. Like in sorcery cards, I mean, Eric was the art director for Grinding Gear Games, so he is an artist himself, and he has like great art sense, right? So he's commissioning in a certain tasteful way, but he's also doing the foiling in a very special way that really accents the design elements and the concepts he wants to pop that resonate with how the game plays in the game. So that's something also unique you get in sorcery with having like a prominent art director at the helm.
I guess after so much praise across the last portion of the discussion, what are some of the challenges you think sorcery has faced or is going to continue to face? Because I know, and one that I have spoken about, just as somebody who enjoys the game, is clearly the frequency of set release and how that may have, or will have, in all honesty, a negative impact on the growth of the game.
Yeah, I think that it's a double-edged sword. I mean, people either absolutely love that or they see it as a major risk. It's like a polarizing type thing, or just people on both sides of the spectrum. And I think certainly like if you look at the consumer perspective, in some ways nowadays, a lot of people are already invested in some other game, right? So they say like, well, sorcery can be their second game. Well, if it's their second game, then it's not their first game. So you're kind of, I think, admitting in that statement that maybe that stymies its upside. You want people to be all in on it and investing all of their capital and financial means on this game. So there's that, and then there's also like, how do you retain interest and engagement for a full year between releases? And it's yet to be seen on these mini sets that are coming out, if that'll fill the gap and how those will fit into the cycle. So there's that aspect, but then also, so that's the consumer aspect. If you look at the store retailer aspect, it's also a bit of a challenge for them, because are they going to be invested in retaining their local community interest for a full year when they don't have new sets to prompt excitement for new play? Like, how do you retain interest? How do you get them coming back and playing more? Like, once they have a full play set, how is it financially viable? I think if stores really want to get involved in that, they need some incentive, or they need to get creative, and they need to want to get creative too, right? Because I think that's going to be the challenge with selling stores on picking up this game and investing time in this game. Would you invest your time in a game that's you don't have something new and exciting to sell with 1 year intervals, or are you going to gravitate towards other alternatives that you can pitch to customers every 2 to 3 months? You
Yeah.
know, like they want to churn product, they want to
turn and burn 100%.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think that's one challenge. The other thing, like with business execution, there's been some issues with delays. I think that some of that is just kind of the growing pains of a new startup
Distribution?
company.
Is that what you mean? The
Yeah,
distribution delays? Yeah.
distribution. That was a concern of mine early on, because you saw that like there was a massive like wave of demand for beta, and it sold out through the regular distribution, and all retailers kind of blew through their initial product very quickly, because I think like most of them assumed that there would be multiple waves. Like with a 1 year release, you would think there'd be more product to come, right? But there wasn't for like many months on end. So typically like stores won't just shelf all their product. They try to churn it as much as they can, and then they order more from distribution, and that's how it works. But so they sold it all, and they got surprised to find out there was no additional product. So there's this long void and this big gap, and it was only available through Team Covenant. So I think that created an opportunity cost of proliferating the retailer network. You know, if there was more product, there would be more incentive for more stores to onboard and get involved and retain that local player community. So I think there was a bit of a missed opportunity with beta there. And now with Arthurian Legends coming out in just about 2 weeks here, I think it's important. They're moving to a wave structure, and I think that'll be really important to start building that retailer network. Because as you know, like in all TCGs, there's this boom, like honeymoon phase where everything's golden, everything's very valuable. So there's a lot of intrigue and interest. But then a few sets in, when that wanes, you want those retailers to be invested in your game and encouraging people to continue to play and collect and buy. You know, that's going to be important to have that network of support, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was heavily involved and invested into a vintage deceased card game called Metazoo. So it experienced a lot of those growing pains. It's funny that you talk about TC, Team Covenant, because that's kind of concerned me. It doesn't involve us on the other side of the planet. But I remember when Metazoo started, there was a company called Channel Fireball, and they had like this bulk of the distribution. Like they seemed to get a lot of the product, and they were the ones that were always selling it. And it turned out, it got found out in the end that they held heaps of it, and they were the ones that were stocking up the price because there wasn't any boxes available. So they start putting them up for these ridiculous prices, and that's sort of what pushed the boxes to a certain level. Is there any concern at a company, or I don't even know what Team Covenant is, but is there any concern of like one particular retailer getting a bulk of product when in reality it should be an even spread to a certain degree? I understand that some retailers hold more weight than others. I'm not naive in that sense, but just comparing the two, Channel Fireball and Metazoo was a bad mix. Could another big retailer like Team Covenant and Sorcery be bad for the game as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always like the risk of putting your eggs in one basket and being dependent on one major primary partner. But I think also smart entrepreneurs and business people learn from the industry and the mistakes of others. And I think that could be mitigated to a large extent through contractual agreement. They might have some kind of contractual partnership with Team Covenant that says, to me, it seemed like there was a commitment to sell at MSRP. So in a way, one of the benefits of this was all the retailers were completely out of stock. And it was almost like a monopoly situation with Team Covenant, who clearly had a commitment to holding the price at MSRP. Because if they were a bad actor or like acting in self-interest, let's say, if you're the only one with any supply, you have a monopoly, you have pricing power, right? They could have charged $300 a box and people would have no alternative, like take it or leave it. And there was big demand, so people probably would have bought it, right? But they held MSRP. So I'm assuming that's probably a contractual relationship and agreement they had with the company. So there was some like pricing stability benefit to that. But again, like the opportunity cost, I think, was it disincentivized other stores from picking up the game because it really just wasn't possible. They couldn't get it at a reasonable price from distribution to make a margin on it. They literally, if they wanted to support the game, they had to buy from Team Covenant or on the secondary market and then get creative on like how to make a profit on it. And I think a lot of stores, being risk averse and cash strained, they're not going to take that risk on a new game. They're going to go support the other games that are coming out every few months that they already have a relationship with. So,
again, I appreciate you.
Like a fresh start with Arthurian Legends.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing that sort of to a head, because I think the comparison that I was drawing, Channel Fireball weren't selling it at MSRP. They had the monopoly and they were taking advantage of it. So it's good to clear up that, you know, Team Covenant weren't doing that. They had the monopoly, but they kept it at MSRP. So, but again, it's always good for the growth of the game to allow as many retailers to adopt and sell that product as possible, and not have it just being sold through one.
Yeah, has a lot of benefits. Free open market competition has a lot of benefits. Without it, even like the secondary market dynamics are all skewed because of that, right? Like one company had monopoly. Like I said, it was almost like price fixed at MSRP. So we don't know what the true market value is in that environment. It's really like, again, take it or leave it at MSRP. The price is MSRP because you don't have a bunch of stores driving the price down or like trying to undercut each other to move it faster. You know, the natural dynamics of market forces are kind of completely wiped out. So I don't know. Arthurian Legends is like, there's going to be a lot of discovery with this set. Like, how well received will it be? Will more stores have it? Will they approach it differently, knowing that, you know, they'll probably reserve some with the risk that maybe it won't be available for several months after the initial release. You know, I
did say that on our last podcast. In the news section, we covered a bit of sorcery, and I did say that Arthurian Legends it'll be the defining factor, or it'll be the moment we'll be able to tell as collectors or players if the 1 year cycle works, and if people will pick it up and it'll continue to grow and keep pushing. So and even like you said, we're going to learn a few other things. I think Arthurian Legends is gonna answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Do we know what the print run is going to be for Arthurian Legends, or is there not spoken about that?
Mike, do we do the print run for alpha and beta as well? I don't know if we do.
Yeah, well, alpha was the Kickstarter, so that was printed like to order basically. You know,
did they print any extra though? Alpha?
Yeah, they did say there was small margin, so I think it was like 29,000 and change was actually sold through the Kickstarter, and then they said there was a modest margin. So people generally assume about 30,000 boxes of alpha. Yeah. Beta was never announced, and that was a big discussion point, which I haven't heard come up as a topic in a while. Like, should they pre-announce the print run or do it like Flesh and Blood does and eventually declare it out of print and tell you what the print run was? To me, I think they should treat it more like Magic and Pokemon, where they don't release that data, and let the natural secondary market forces determine what the value of it is. Because it's really just supply and demand determines price, right? If you tell them what the supply side is, you're biasing valuation for better or worse. People are going to think it's either too much or too low. I mean, again, ultimately the market will decide, but I think it does affect consumer behavior, where they decide in their minds like, oh, that's a crazy number, I'm not going to mess around with this game anymore. Or that's like, that seems small to me and I see a lot of people playing it, I'm going to speculate and hoard a bunch. I think it's just unnatural and not a good idea. So long story short, no, we don't know for beta, we don't know for Arthurian Legends, and they haven't stated a policy on if they'll ever reveal that.
I don't think we should. I think as a blanket rule across all card games, I think print run information is something that you reserve the right to as the creator and developer of the game. And that's it, because all you're doing is leaning into the investor speculation that a certain part of the market want and will somehow try and manipulate that and use that for their own gain. I don't think we need to know print runs. I mean, like you said, Magic and Pokemon, the two most dominant over almost, you know, well, I was going to say 3 decades, but Pokemon's only like 25 years old, but you know what I mean? For the most part, like, and they don't do it.
I hope that Sorcery have learnt from other games in the past. I know, like we spoke about Metazoo, and the print run of Wilderness was 100,000 booster boxes, which was 2x the set 2 Nightfall. And that was the start of the downfall, where they just overprinted. They completely destroyed demand. And I know in Fab as well, we also had something similar with Monarch and History. As a collector, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Print to the cows come home, because I just want to collect everything. So I'm more than happy. But those print runs affected that game as well. So I hope Sorcery doesn't go, whatever it was, 30,000 alpha and go, all right, 75.
Yeah.
Because it's the big jump is often what I see just like destroys them.
Can guarantee Sorcery definitely won't go down the Metazoo path, because Metazoo's failure was purely based on ownership and management. That's it. And we know that ownership and management for the most part for Sorcery is great.
Yep. What does the current market look like, Mike, in terms of like singles and sealed product and stuff from alpha and beta? I know we're about to move into the next set, but how's the market performing at the moment? I know it's a really financially tough time across the globe at the moment, and we're seeing from a hobby perspective compared to 3 years ago, where obviously, the market's down, but how's Sorcery holding up at the moment?
Well, I guess I really got to separate in two categories. I mean, obviously I deal more in art. I work with a lot of the artists and kind of like an agent type relationship, and helping them sell their original paintings and artist proofs and altars and things like that. And that market has been very healthy and very strong. I mean, I would say it's an early stage game, so the breadth of the market is not massive, certainly like not something like a Magic art market, right? But there is like a very hardcore, passionate, reasonable amount of people that you would expect when I run auctions and stuff. You kind of get a sense for the breadth of bidders and returning bidders versus new and stuff like that. And it's really evolved over time. There's been new bidders that have come in and others that have fallen off, and then some that come back in time. But overall, price-wise, there's been like huge price escalation in original paintings and artist proofs, all art categories. And then when you get to the core product, I think I don't deal as much in that personally, but I kind of keep a pulse on it just through people I know that are into Sorcery and single sellers and this and that. And I hear that liquidity in the alpha side is a little slow at the moment. And I think the reason for that is it's just been so long. It's been like almost, I guess, 2 years or so since, it came out in...
It's about basically 2 years, right?
2023. Yeah, it's been a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
When it came to Kickstarter. So I think like a lot of the hardcore collectors and early adopters acquired their collection goals or their play goals, right? They have a play set or they're playing with beta, but when it comes to alpha, a foil alpha set is extremely expensive and just so rare and scarce, is really hard to acquire. I think a lot of people gave up on that and collected niche categories like all the foils for their favorite artists, or maybe just the ordinaries and exceptionals or something like that. And then a lot went for non-foil sets and they're satiated. But from what I hear on beta, there is like pretty strong liquidity and sell through, and a lot of those singles are selling, which you would think it could be two things. It could be one, people achieve their alpha goals, or they gave up on going for that foil alpha set and beta is more attainable, so they're investing in beta, or they just enjoy the collection of having a full set and they're doing it with beta, or they're buying lower end singles or filling out their decks as the meta evolves and new decks come to light, and that shows player interest, which is good. So I think it's in a healthy state right now, and we're on the cusp of Arthurian Legends, so everything is subject to change and hopefully more growth and improvement.
Yeah.
Arthurian Legends. I just had this urge to say it the way Rudy says it. I don't know if either of you watch Rudy's videos, but every time he says it, he's like, Arthurian Legends. I just absolutely love it. It's so funny. But before we wrap up I've just got one thing. I've got to ask both of you, because I've actually heard you talk about this before, Mike. As a collector, how do you feel about the holo coloring difference between beta and alpha? No, so I believe it was alpha and beta were kind of the same, but it was beta and the second release of beta, which they're calling summer, the summer set. Apparently the vibrance in artwork and foiling was like sparsely different. I haven't experienced it. I didn't open any of the summer set. I opened a lot of the original beta, but maybe you can talk to that, Mike, if you've experienced both.
Yeah, I mean, like from a collector perspective, I think there is some level of interest. I think it's going to be niche of people that like had a first print collection. I don't know if there's going to be like that the masses are going to see the second print as this thing that they have to have, and they're going to go chase like a whole nother set of just the second print. Or that like people will really start splitting hairs on like, well, the second print was probably much less printed than the first print, so it's more rare, it should be more valuable. I personally see beta as more of like a player set. and not like the big speculative investment set per se. But I think like the goodness in it, and I think the reason why they did it is I think Eric used that opportunity to tweak the print quality and the color saturation of these cards ahead of Arthurian Legends and really tune it before we got to Arthurian Legends to make those cards as polished and presentable and aesthetic as possible. So I think it was smart, and it served as a great opportunity in that regard, and that's the most important to make the Arthurian Legends product as good as it can be.
No, I would agree with that take for sure.
Yeah, because when I heard it, my first thought was, well, base set Pokemon. You had First Ed, then you had Shadowless, and then you had Unlimited.
And you had fourth print as well.
Oh, there was also fourth print.
Fourth print, which was the one that like basically just came down here.
So I didn't know if that was deliberate or not, but I really like your hypotheses of
I think Mike's take there is probably key.
I don't think it was a collectability scheme at all. I think it was more knowing like Eric's like how seriously he takes design and wants the cards to look and feel a certain way. I think he used that as an opportunity for AL.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wrap up the sorcery section, I guess I would say, I just wanted to talk about Sorcery Con 24. Because that is coming up. You've played it. You play a pretty big part in that. So do you mind just sort of telling listeners exactly what it is and what it's about?
Yeah, so it's a big convention. It's coming up in Las Vegas, major venue at the Park MGM on the biggest strip on November 1st through 3rd this year. So what happened? There was a Sorcery Con last year in Seattle, and it was smaller scale. I want to say, let's say like between 100 to 150 people, I think it was. Smaller venue, Seattle, so different kind of market. And with Sorcery Con 2024, they want to do this at least annually, right? And as the follow-up, the two guys that ran Sorcery Con Seattle paired with this guy, Drew Holmes, who has a channel called On the Play. The company actually recently hired him, it sounds like, to help with event coordination. He did a really nice job with this March of the Mortals tournament down in Texas where he lives. So they teamed up to do this Sorcery Con. And then Drew reached out to me and he said like, hey, we got to include Mike. He has all these connections with the artist. I think he could really help market this thing across his platforms and help us like get as many artists as we can. Or, we had a target number of 10, which I blew that away. I was like, listen, guys, I don't care what your budget is. I was like, I will fundraise, I will scrape and call, do whatever it takes to make sure every artist that wants to come will come.
Yeah.
Love that. Like when I commit to something, I'm like super hardcore passionate about it. I was like, if I'm going to put my name on this has to be the most effing mind-blowing event that anyone has ever been to, you know? So like, this is a big opportunity. It's Las Vegas. It's a grand stage. So at the moment we have 12 sorcery artists. And we have one altarist too that I work with. It does amazing work. He did magic altars for many years, and now he's doing sorcery altars. He's got incredible talent. So 13 artists so far. Eric's going to be there, and Simon and Chase from the company. We're going to have a Q&A. We're going to have artist signings, prints, probably original paintings displayed and sold. And then there's all the different game formats. We got the typical sealed, constructed, draft format, Arthurian Legends, and Alpha Beta. And then the old school Magic guys are really getting into it. And there's going to be some guys from the West Coast coming out and doing this two-headed dragon format that they've come up with, which is like a multiplayer 2v2 type format on a larger grid. So yeah, it's gonna be big, huge, guys, huge. And you guys are so far away. I feel bad,
I mean, hey, look, if you can afford to get all these artists out, why don't you just fly the hobby podcast out and we'll cover it as well? It's fine.
Yeah, it's good, man. If you want to go all in on sorcery, this is the place to make connections. We're expecting 300 to 400 people.
Yeah.
Tickets are selling well. People are really pumped.
Yeah, look, it's something I would seriously consider if it wasn't my son's first birthday a couple of days after. So the old wife is not going to let that one happen. But I will 100% be living vicariously through you. Do you know if there's any planned like live streams or live breaks or anything that anybody could possibly tune into to experience the event that can't get to the event?
Yeah, we will be streaming it. So there'll be a Sorcery Con channel on YouTube, and So I mentioned the Q&A, we're working through a lot of the logistics of this stuff, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of planning. We have like weekly meetings. We're spending hours on this every week to make it as good as it can be. And there's a lot of logistics that go into a destination event and getting all the audio equipment out there. We have a really great audio guy. So initially it was Drew that was helping us with that. The company hired him. He had to pull out of the event. So we have this other guy that did it for a Baltimore event, which is kind of in my area on the East Coast. I went to that earlier this year, and he's really great at this stuff too. He's going to bring out all the gear. We're going to have in-person engagement type things. Like I'll be doing so we'll have a couple commentators commenting on all the games and broadcasting that, and then we'll have segments in between where I'll be going by the artist booths and doing little segments with the artists so people can meet the artists too. And probably with Eric and Simon and Chase from the company. So there'll be a lot of fun. People can follow at home, and some stuff that'll be exclusive to in the event. So people should please come buy a ticket and come. And there's nothing like going to these things in person.
100%.
Like, the energy is off the chain. And
yeah.
Just meeting people that we've been talking to on Discord and Facebook is just so fun.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I went to a Collector Con in the first Casters Cup for Metazoo when it was a game that people played and it existed and all that sort of stuff. But I can speak, I'm saying I went all the way over to Texas to enjoy that event, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. So if you can get over there and do it, like 100%, absolutely do it. I totally would if Harry wasn't turning one like fucking 4 days later. So
understandable.
All right, I think we could talk about Sorcery. I know I could talk about Sorcery with you, Mike, for like days. But there's another really a really big part of what you do and what you run out there, and that is called Collectors Arthouse. So we really want to dive into that and spend a bit of time on that, because it's something that in my TCG experience across all other games I've never come across. And again, it probably is because of the way those games, their art and things are directed. So it makes sense, perhaps, that Sorcery has somebody like you curating something like the Collector Arthouse. But if you could just kick it off by sort of telling everybody what the mission is of the Collector Arthouse, what the mission is and your dreams and your goals for it, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, so obviously I'm a big art enthusiast. That's what was the draw for Sorcery for me originally. And I think like through Collector Arthouse and these like the social media network that I kind of established, it creates a platform to showcase the art of the game and the artists themselves as people, right? So it spreads that art awareness. Like I was telling you guys, like it all started with early on, like the unfortunate thing about it is like people coming into the game now are like, who is this guy? He's running auctions all the time. He's selling stuff. He's just like some kind of marketing salesman and just like all about the money. Is like some of like the toxic naysayers say sometimes, right? But it kind of dismisses like the purity of like how it all started. Like I really just wanted to talk to the alpha artists that I knew as kids that I had a nostalgia for and interview them. So I created a website. I figured out what is a website domain. How do you even create a website? I don't like watch all these YouTube videos just to learn the very basics of how to make this crude website. And the first thing I did was those interviews and finding all the original full art images through all the social media of all the artists. I created like an artist bio page that had links to all their social media and how to contact them. And then I got into doing these like behind the art features where I would like take one of the card arts and ask them about the design concept, like show me some of the original sketches. What was the art direction you got from the creator? How did you come up with the concept? So in a nutshell, it was about showcasing the artists themselves as people, because it really kind of like intrinsically motivated me and excited me and inspired me as I learned about who they were as people. Like I just viewed them as like celebrities, right? Like, wow, these people have tremendous talent. They paint for card games. I mean, they have a skill that I can only dream of. Why would they even want to talk to me? But as I got to talking to them, I was a nobody. I was like, I don't want to waste their time. I feel bad even like wasting their time with an interview. But as I got to talking to them, they're just regular people, and their stories were very interesting and fascinating, and how they got into art and how a lot of these artists had no formal training. They were just like like I get super passionate and obsessive about one or two things at a time, and I'm like all in on it, and I develop and I grow, and I just invest all my energy. That's how artists are, right? They have a love and a passion for art. A lot of them are not classically trained, but since they're so dedicated, they have just gotten better and better and better over their time to where they're at the top of their game now, and they could do these mind-blowing original paintings on these cards. So that was the initial goal, and then just eventually one thing led to another, and I was finding that I think it was with Severin Pignou. She's a French artist that is very established, and she sells paintings for 5 figures like regularly, like large sums, very valuable work, very intricate. She did the elemental avatars and the Key Thera mechanism and many of the other Philosopher's Stone, some of the most significant cards in the game. And when I was talking to her, I asked her like how she sold her art. I was like, I can't find a website with your paintings. Like, how would I even buy them? Because I wanted, like, Eric revealed this card in Discord one day, and I was like, holy shit, that looks freaking amazing. And I reached out to her and asked her if it was available, and she was like, yeah, actually it is. And I bought it like immediately that day. And I was like, well, how are fans supposed to buy your stuff? You don't even have a website. And she was like, yeah, like in France, like we don't have agents, like we don't really do that. We just kind of go to galleries and stuff. And she hadn't really like worked for a TCG before. And I found like a lot of the other artists had not either. And a lot of them were just kind of like really she was selling some of her stuff for like $600, $700, $900. And I was like, why are you doing that when your work outside of the game sells for several thousand or even tens of thousands? It doesn't make sense. And she was like, oh, it's just fantasy art. It's just a game, like she kind of like dismissed the value of her work because of the use case for it. And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, you are an established, she's like a middle-aged person. Like I was like, you are a very well-established artist. You shouldn't you're kind of like doing yourself a disservice by undervaluing your art. It's going to create a perception that it's not valuable, which is totally backwards for an artist of your stature. And a lot of like artists were in that camp, and I know like TCG markets can be very opportunistic and manipulative and stuff. And I was like, I had like kind of befriended a lot of these artists through the interviews and building relationships with them. I was like, I would like to work with you to help you get fair value. And like your works, some people are going to be upset, because they want to speculate, they want to buy on the cheap, they want to flip and make money on your work, right? But this is your creation. And this game's coming out once a year. You only have one shot to sell that painting. You should get fair value for it, So I was like, I will work with you. Like, and I had built these platforms by this point. I was like, maybe we'll try auctions, and like the market will decide what it's worth. Like we won't predetermine at a fixed price. We'll just let people bid, and the likelihood is like people that really appreciate your work are willing to pay. I find that like Sorcery appeals to a middle-aged demographic as its core market, more well-established people with financial means, and you get more mature folks that really have like a true passion for the art and want to own it and display it. They're not looking to flip it or speculate on it. So they're happy to pay fair value, and they're happy to frame it and get it on their wall and enjoy it, So I was like, you're not going to be selling to speculators anymore, really, is what it comes down to. You're going to be selling to people that are going to appreciate your work. And I found that is very important to artists. They want it to go to a good, loving home. They want it to be displayed proudly. They want people to see it. It's no one wants someone to just undervalue, devalue work and only buy it opportunistically to flip it. So that's kind of like how it evolved into like the Collector Arthouse aspect of it. And then more recently, I got into altars, which I thought, personally, I was not into the altar scene. So differentiating artist proofs from altars. With artist proofs, you have the face of the card, and then the back is blank. And then the artists receive a certain number of cards. In Sorcery, they receive 25 of those. And then they usually sketch or paint on the back. So that's initially what we offered. But then it occurred to me, like, I almost kind of, in my mind, like recreated the journey of Sorcery through altars, because it's a discovery of new great artists, right? And I was like, we can use this perfect platform of Sorcery that has a lot of like really invested art enthusiasts that love art, and leverage these platforms, these social media platforms that I've grown to showcase other artists' work, on top of Sorcery, right? So By design, like whenever I work with an altarist, we don't. Some altarists will just kind of like preserve some of the original elements of the art and just like tweak aspects of it around it to kind of repurpose it. I was like, I want to be a purist about this and let these new artists express it in their own way. So I always insist that they completely redesign the entire image, you know, in their own vision. And so now they have this platform to get all this visibility for their work, just like sorcery enabled for a lot of these artists to get into TCGs for the first time. And it's a lot of fun because of these 1 year releases. We're all desperate for new art to be revealed constantly. We get it every single day through these altars, through these artist proofs with the sorcery artists, and it keeps things fresh and exciting and fun. So that's what kind of drives me intrinsically. I love the discovery of art, and I like helping the artists and the community too. Like, I think it's important the community own stuff that's valuable. You know, if you're spending a few $100 for a painting, it's not as enjoyable to own if it's more valuable, right? Just like cards, you want the valuable cards. It just makes it more fun.
I mean, when you say altars as well, it's almost gone down a road of alternate arts, like you said, you know, because it's completely reimagined artwork. Which is, and the first time we actually got a taste of that in sorcery was in alpha. They had the Frank Frazetta artworks, and then in beta they didn't have the license to reuse those, so those artworks were reimagined, and those cards still like were really popular, even though they weren't the Frazetta artworks. Maybe not the Violimp, just in terms of like value when you look at some of the other ones, but I guess that was because of Violimp's an ordinary card as opposed to a lot of other Frank's artworks in that alpha set were all uniques.
Yeah, I think with those Frazetta cards, like Eric intentionally told the artist to not try to make it look like the Frazetta cards. They wanted each of the artists to completely reimagine it in their own way. Like, I was part of Drew Tucker's reveal of the Quarters Entice, and it's completely different. The Egyptian Queen, famous Frazetta painting with the naked woman leaning against a pillar. That's the one he redid, and he did this like different, like older looking woman kind of like slumped in a chair, like wildly different, right?
Yeah.
And it was like very colorful and just completely different take. But yeah, that's exactly what the altars are like. And you're right, like the term altars is kind of a misnomer because they're not taking the original concept and tweaking it. They're literally completely repainting the card. So it has the same title and the same text box, but the art is entirely their own creation. And these artists are mind-blowingly good. You know, like when the like Atlas Thorne, Dustin Broussard, Vivian Calzan, some of these artists, when I get a Facebook message of like, they send me the digital images before they mail them out to me, and like when I see that notification pop up, like my heart just starts racing. Like, I can't wait to see what they did next. You know, how are they actually doing this? It's surreal.
Well, I mean, look, so the Collector Arthouse universe now basically is YouTube. You've got about 4,000 Facebook members. You've got Discord, Patreon. You've got over 100 Patreons, I think. How have you sort of managed? Because I assume I'm literally assuming that you still have maybe a day job. I don't know, but then to fit all that, the management of all of that and all those platforms, like how do you actually do that?
Yeah, and a father of 3.
And then you get up at 4 a.m. to speak to us as well.
Well, I'm just on and I got 3 little kids, 9, 6, and 3. So, married. So yeah, I got family stuff going on, but I don't know, man. Like I say, like I get real passionate and fixated on things, and I'm like all in on it. Usually like 1 or 2 things. Like when I was in high school, I got really into like lifting. That was my thing. You know, like I wanted to be like Arnold.
That's where the ZYZZ love comes from.
Yeah. It's like, so I was into that scene. I still do that. I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning and lift before like my kids wake up and before I go to work. So that's still like one of my fixations, you know, like working out and art, like sorcery. And then I do have a full-time job. But like one other thing, like I wanted to point out too, is like my approach to this, like the way I see it is there are some like agents or certain people that sellers, you know, single sellers, not to disparage anybody, but like, I don't see what I'm doing as like a transactional value proposition. Like anyone can sell something, right? Or create a platform, grow a community, and just run auctions, right? And it's just very transactional. Like what I'm passionate about is I still do like a lot of interviews. Like I do YouTube appearances with the artists, and I do written Q&As and the written articles, the behind the art features, because it's building a brand for the artist, it's building awareness for the artist, and it's building a connection between fan and artist, which creates value again for everybody. For the artist, for one, the value of their work is enhanced, and then also the like appreciation and the emotional attachment from the collector is strengthened too, because they know who that artist is as a person. And like when you see the artwork, you think about more than the card. You think about the person that created it, and you feel good about owning it. You know, like I found sometimes owning cards was kind of like a sterile experience where like I had this collection, great, but then it sits in the closet and I don't really look at it, or it kind of loses its luster over time. With a painting, if you know the person that created it, you know their story, you know, you feel better about it. And it's kind of like, it feels like a kinship of a way. But yeah, how do I do it? I don't know, man. I just like when you're passionate about something, you find a way, right? So I'm on my cell phone a lot, and just kind of like I work my 8 or 9 or 10 hours in my day job, and then I come home and I do it. I'm on my phone a lot at night, and then like early in the morning. And it's a lot, like the auctions I mirror both on Facebook and in my Discord. And the reason I did that is because like it creates an open a lot of people hate Facebook. They hate Zuckerberg. They hate like being watched on any kind of like internet or social media, right? So I didn't want to exclude people that don't want to use Facebook. I wanted to make it accessible to more people. So I created a Discord too, and I have about, I don't know, 13 or 1400 people there. And a lot of the bidding actually comes through Discord. So it ended up being a smart move. So now everyone can participate, and but it becomes a lot of like manual maintenance for me. If someone bids one platform, I got to go post it on the other, so like it's in sync and people know what the current price is.
I've witnessed that and tipped my hat many a times, been like, God, that's a lot of admin. That's a lot of work.
The point you made around the products and not knowing the artist or not having that connection, you know, we've always said here that collectibles by yourself is just no fun. Like, unless you've got people around you in a community that you can share that with, or you have memories attached to items, it literally is just cardboard or a piece of art. But once there's a story and once there's a connection there, it's 1,000 times better. I wanna ask you, Mike. I mentioned earlier that Sorcery changed Tony's life, but it's also changed your life massively as well with the work that you're doing. I saw that you had an exclusive card reveal of the Sherwood Huntress with Sam McKinnon. If I had asked you 2 years ago that you were going to get an exclusive on a piece of art in Sorcery, what would you turn around and say?
Dude, I mean, like so many things about like the last few years are like so surreal. Like I told you, like I thought I was like just like an annoying nobody when I reached out to these artists. I was like, man, I was like, I feel bad even like wasting their time at all. Like, why would they want to do an interview with like some random guy? You know? So like, I don't know, like things have really come a long way. And yeah, it was cool. Like I also like, I don't know if you guys know, but like in the Kickstarter, Eric included my collectorarthouse.com link in the Kickstarter campaign. So there was like, they didn't have like a well-established website, and like really didn't have much showcasing the art of the game, which was like a big missed opportunity. And like, I think he liked my website enough and saw enough value in it that he was like, this can help me with a Kickstarter campaign. Like, would it be okay if I linked it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like blown away. I was like, oh, it was kind of validating. I was like, cause I was like, shit, I didn't even know how to create a website. I thought like it was kind of actually shitty, you know? Like, I was like, it could be like way more presentable. Like I was like, but here's a guy that's an art director that actually thinks it's pretty cool. So I was really humbled by that. And then, 2 years later to have like a card reveal. Because again, like I wasn't doing YouTube at all. I never considered YouTube my primary platform. And I thought it was like super weird and awkward to like be on camera. So when I started YouTube, I didn't do any camera stuff. And then this guy, you know, there's this guy, Ted. He has a Ted's Basement podcast. He was in the Metazoo and stuff. So you might know him from that.
No, I don't know Ted.
He asked me to like, he wanted to interview me one time. I was like, all right. So I went on. I was on camera that one time, and it was like kind of fun. So I was like, all right, I'll start doing it. And I still find like recorded content to be a little contrived and awkward, but I really like doing live events because I could have guests on, like we're doing here, or I could have like an artist. I have artists on a lot, so it's a great way for the fans to connect with the artists. And just I really like the impromptu nature of things, unscripted, just kind of speak from the heart, be yourself, and let it fly type of thing.
Well, I think that's a real.
Yeah, it's surreal, man. Great opportunity. I really appreciate the company like allowing me to do that. It was a lot of fun.
I think it's just a real credit to everything you're doing, because your story is really, really new with me. But I can already see that. I mean, when I first opened up the Collector Arthouse and I was going through the artists and their artwork, I saw like an Elementalist, the colors on that card. I think it was actually by the French artist you were talking about before. And then there was like
That
these.
one, Elvira Shakarova, Russian artist. Yeah, she's great too.
I saw that card and I was like, oh, I need that one. And then I was going through and looking for Avatar of Earth, Air, Water, and Fire. And I was like, oh, these look so, because I'm a huge Avatar Last Airbender fan. So I like saw that and I was like, oh, I need these cards too. But it's just great to see someone that's allowing that platform for the artists there. So I really tip my hat to the work that you're doing over there.
So
thanks, man.
Just based on what you said then too, Colonel, the first foil card that I ever pulled in Sorcery was that Elementist.
I need it. I'll take it off your hands.
So you can imagine like you're opening a booster box of cards that you've never opened before, and then you're going through, especially like, you know, with Sorcery having 39 packs in their alpha boxes, and you're only hitting them like 6 to 8 foils most boxes, going through like 10, 14 packs, and then finally hit one, and that's the foil, the first foil that I see. You're just like, it's like love at first sight, like straight up, because it's just the artwork's just next level. I did say, Mike, at the start of the episode, there was something in the background that I wanted to ask you about, and I'm assuming you think I may have already asked you about it, but I haven't, because there's a box sitting on top of those Sorcery boxes that I believe is Guardians.
Yeah.
What I've seen you posting about that like randomly over the last like couple of months, so I googled it. It's like another old school dead game like Metazoo. And I was trying, and I wanted to ascertain one. I was like, I need to obtain this box. I was like, I want one, and I can't find one for sale anywhere. What is it, and how do I get it?
So yeah, Guardian CCG was like one of those 90s era games. So like there's two things that I would say is my kind of like niche or specialty in Sorcery. It's the art, but it's also like the history of the game. I've done like a lot to discover like the early development of it, what was the inspiration of it, what makes Eric tick type of thing. And he also has like a vast dead CCG collection, and he's commissioning a lot of the artists from the 90s that were involved in these games. Like back then, a lot of these artists that we know from Magic Alpha, they also did like many other TCGs. There were tons of TCGs coming out at that time. So in Guardians, there was the curio card for Death Speaker. It's the is that
the Brom one?
Yeah, the Brom one. So Gerald Brom was the artist. He did that artwork for Guardians CCG, the exact same artwork. And it was on this card called Shadow Warrior and Guardians. So like in recent months, like I focused a lot on Sorcery itself. There was these early playtest cards, sample cards, even digital files from the simulator, like pre-alpha, the testers were playing with. And we saw the evolution and change of the design through that aspect. But then more recently, I kind of wanted to know, like, what are the external influences that shape this game? And I'm finding that like games like Guardians was a big one. And the way Guardians is I believe it's also like a grid-based style play. So there's some like play style influence there. But the art influence, there's Brom was in it. Keith Parkinson is like the artist that created it. Tremendous. I think he passed away. But I think like that could be an artist that is licensed for the game, just like they announced Quentin Hoover and licensing work with his family, like they also did with Frazetta. But there's like it's a very like lighthearted, fun, experiential, and flavorful game. In a lot of ways, Sorcery is that as well too. You know, you have this new card, Just a Rock, which has kind of like a silly artwork, and it replaces the head of the figure with just a rock.
Did you see? There was like a bit of uproar about that. Like there was a couple of people in the community that were like, you know, cracking the shits over this card, like just called Just a Rock. I'm like, bruh, have some fun with it. Like that's hilarious.
Well, it's because it's like an answer for the Philosopher's Stone, like one of the big cards. Like people want to collector side, speculative side wants to preserve the power level and value of some of those early cards, and it's still good, but they don't want to see answers being introduced, right?
Yeah,
counters. yeah, so the game, like the game draws a lot of inspiration from that one and several others. So that's why, like, I sometimes go on a tangent and do a deep dive on other games and start comparing card titles or illustrations or artists to how they've evolved. And
so where can I get a box of Guardians from?
Yeah, so it was on eBay, and I don't know if it was like my doing. Like you guys mentioned earlier that like I have like influence. Like I never think that's true, or like sometimes I'm kind of like totally surprised by that too, because I don't know.
You influenced me. Like, I want one because of you.
Yeah, that's what's been happening, right? Because it's like a dead CCG, so there wasn't a ton of it. I bought it on eBay, but I started finding like the boxes started like skyrocketing, and like I bought a few copies. Like initially, people didn't realize that illustration came from Guardians on the curio. It's like a super valuable curio.
It's beautiful, like beautiful artwork as
probably
well.
$8,000 to $10,000 card. It's like insane value. It's extremely rare. So I bought like a few copies of the Guardians version on eBay for like $1.50 or something. And then all of a sudden, like you couldn't find it anywhere, and people were selling it for like $50. People are paying like $100 for it now, and it's like this like fairly. It's not like the most rare card in the game, and it's like, you know, not like a power card or anything crazy like that. Guardians isn't even like a highly relevant game anymore. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It was hard to find, and now there's like some passionate niche interest from sorcery market, I think, that's really rocketed the values and made it hard to track down.
So have you got a box to sell, and can I buy
it? I think someone gave me a sealed box, so I can't sell it. He did it so I could open it on the channel. That's the box I started to open in one of my videos, and there's like 10 packs left. So no, I don't have one. That's my only box. And the other one I'm going to open like on channel at some point.
Yeah.
I would suggest just wait till things like cool down and go back to normal, and probably someday again, you'll be able to get it at a reasonable price.
Yeah. I just got to put it in my calendar for 4 years from now when people forget about it. Like, oh, buy Guardians box. I'll just keep looking on eBay and see when one pops up. But yeah, I also like to, I wouldn't say collect dead TCGs, but after going so hard into Metazoo and it dying, I do find myself like trying to buy a booster box of a lot of, I guess, even Kickstarter games, just to sort of like just grab one, just put it away, just because you never know when it might be a topic of conversation to be able to turn around and go, oh yeah, here it is. Like this is what it looks like, and blah, 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 blah.
It's really fun rediscovering these games and having a reason to do so, to relate it to sorcery's influence. Like I have a box of the Brahm fantasy cards that someone sent. Sometimes people just like send me stuff and they're like, even their collections. They're like, hey, Mike, like this one guy reached out to me recently, and he's like trying to get a complete master set of everything in beta, like all the non-foils, foils, all the curios, everything. And he's like, once I have this completed, I might send it off to you. You could show it on your channel and then send it back to me. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, man. I love that. Because like I have a lot of like unique depth of knowledge of the history and of like the art concepts of a lot of these cards, and the curios too relate to that because they have to do with historical development in many cases. So I could tell it in a unique way, and people enjoy that, you know? So it's really cool that they help enable me to do that, because I don't have like, I have a lot of paintings. I have more paintings than I have like card collection, really mainstream card collection. It's kind of weird.
You do a lot of middlemaning as well, don't you, within the sorcery community?
Yeah, I do like consignment type stuff too, offering with auctions or direct sale for like very high value unique items like paintings or curios and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Nice.
Before we move on to our rapid fire questions, Mike,
that'll be fun.
Is there anything else you want to cover from the Collector Art House, or is there any hobby podcast exclusives you can give us? We love an exclusive here on the pod.
Give us something.
Well, we did just announce that Eric, the creator, is going to be at Sorcery Con. So I thought I'd be revealing it on this show, but then like our website guy for Sorcery Con put it on the page, and I was like, oh man, I got to get this on all my socials right away now. But I'll reinforce it on the podcast. Let the Australians know. So that's like a big thing for Sorcery Con. I think we have the 13 artists. There was like one or two that was on the fence, so there might be another announcement. I'm not certain, so I can't really say at this moment, but there's going to be a Q&A with Eric at Sorcery Con, which is big. Ed Bear Jr., we just recently announced he did this. He's doing this Dragon Lord, the Dragon Lord mini set.
Yeah,
that's the Dragon Lord's Lair. So he has like, I think it's about 10 paintings. I don't know. It's possible they could have grown, But he did like several paintings, and he's like this very well established artist that's been doing this for 42 years. He's done alpha magic and so much beyond that. You know, he airbrushes cars. He has this like wild Dragon Lord van that's all airbrushed all the way around. So he has like this whole story built around all these paintings that he's done for this Dragon Lord mini set. So every painting tells an elaborate story, and I think it's going to be something special for sorcery. So he's going to make an appearance at Sorcery Con. I don't know, by way of announcements, yeah, if you're talking about the event, that's probably the gist of it. It's going to be a big deal. Yeah, doing a lot of fun stuff with artists. I'm always doing like special projects with artists too. We might do some special play mats coming up, and sometimes we do embellished prints and things like that.
Are you privy to any information regarding Arthurian legends that may or may not be public knowledge yet?
I don't have any like real inside info other than I think it's kind of well known with Elvira Shakarova. She did the Sir Tristan Knight, and it was this really elaborate painting that has this very elaborate gilding around the border. And Eric allowed us to do a reveal of that, and he said she can reveal one of the knights, you know. And then there was a video where he appeared where it looked like there was a King Arthur and Queen Guinevere knight, and similar stylistically, so you know it's Elvira. So the leading theory is that there will be several of those, and those will be the curio cards most likely for Arthurian Legends. Because Eric said it will be like, he didn't say the word curio. They don't talk about curios, but he did say that it'll be the chase. It'll be a chase of some kind. And when he said that, I was like I didn't want to, I wasn't sure if he was just like confiding in me or if that was something I could say. So I was like, are you cool with me saying that publicly? And he was like, oh yeah, that's fine. You know, so I think it's going to be the curios. And he's like, I sold that painting for her, and it was a record sale at the time. It was a private sale, so I can't say exactly what it was, but it was.
Was it five figures?
Before that was 12,500, and it was close to double territory of that. Like nice. Massive sale. It's large, and it's like the detail is like unbelievable. And Eric also mentioned that there'd be a special foiling technique. Now he changes his mind often, and sometimes he says he's going to do things that he finds out are not practical realities. So things evolve. But at the time, he told me this well over a year ago, that he said he's trying to come up with a foil technique that mirrors the gilding itself. So I think it'll be different. It might be some kind of raised foil or some kind of special foiling technique that we discover in our. I
think there's like gilding foil techniques out there. Magic did a similar kind of. If that's what he's referring to, in Bloomborough in their most recent set, they had a couple of cards that had a very particular gold gilding still on the face of the card, not like gilded edges on the card, I guess. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
October's around the corner. So if Arthurian Legends is on time, then, you know, we'll have it soon.
Love it. Yeah. Actually, I've got one more question before we move on. I'm so sorry. With your, how did you go approaching your wife when it came to the community art challenge and you said, I need the sun to stand behind me and slit my throat? Because
the mage slayer that you did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that was another kind of like promotional engagement event that the company ran, and it was people coming up with their own card ideas and art concepts. So yeah, I mean, like, so I kind of forged like a connection with Tony Sublow, and kind of we became friends and have talked a lot and stuff. And he told me about, so there's an artwork called Mage Slayer, the one you're describing, where like what I wanted to do beyond the interviews was do these kind of like behind the art features where I connected with the artist and I write up an article about the direction they got from Eric and then how they came up with the concept. And like one of the beautiful things about sorcery is Eric gives them like, he's a guy that's like very brief with his words as it is. He doesn't talk a lot. I don't know if he's just introverted or what it is, but his art direction is similar to that. Like he'll give them like a couple sentence, very high level description of what it is. And they have a lot of creative freedom to take in whatever direction they want and come up with a concept. So Tony was telling me about this story about how his daughter was dating this guy. Right. And they had some kind of falling out. I don't know. He was fighting with his daughter and or the boyfriend, I guess. And he was like, hey, man, he's trying to like, he used this as like a technique to patch things up with them. It sounds like, he says, how would you like me to draw you slitting my throat on a card? And he was like, all right, whatever. And I was like, so Tony, you let this, I was like, what, do you just use some props? And he's like, no, he held a knife to my throat. And I was like, you trusted this guy to do that? And he was like, yeah. He's like, we kind of like reenacted the whole thing. And like, that was my reference image for the painting. So it's like, it's Tony sitting there and it's the son-in-law, or not son-in-law. They didn't get married, but they were dating. And he's like slitting his throat, and he's bleeding out like on this book that's in front of him. And then there's like a couple assailants charging in that are dead in the background. So yeah, so I did that with my son slitting. I was the guy. My son was slitting my throat, and in the background, my daughter was like slumped against the window as the dead assailant. It was just a fun, funny thing. And then I got like, I'm not too good at. I'm like a real boomer at like thumbnails with YouTube and stuff, and not so good at Photoshop. So one of the guys in the Discord helped me with the template and it said something like Collector Arthouse down by the artist name, you know, because it's kind of like right? Copyright Collector Arthouse.
That's awesome. All right, mate, we're going to move into the last part of the episode. This is our rapid fire questions. So these are just a bit of fun. We just need one word. Maybe we'll give you 3 or 4 word answers, but really short and sharp to finish us off. You ready?
All right.
All right. What's your favorite TCG outside of Sorcery?
Guardians.
Nice. What's your all-time favorite piece of card art?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Keith Era Mechanism. Special connection.
So every answer to these questions is obviously going to be in the background. That seems to be the theme right now.
Yeah. So what's the most valuable card in your collection?
Card. I have a Philo Stone artist proof painted that I didn't buy it directly from Severn. I sold it and then I acquired it back from somebody as part of a larger collection purchase. But yeah, that's probably worth, I don't know, $5 grand or more probably.
Love that. FOMO be real. Z's. Inspiration or meme?
Well, inspiration or meme?
Yeah.
Inspiration, man. I respect his passion.
Love that.
I want to chime in there because the question is
like the guy.
Inspiration or meme legend. So he is a meme legend at the same time.
Technically he is both, and to some people it's just a meme and it's the joke. But I respect the guy. I like the energy and like the raves and the music. That's some good hype music to work out to.
Now, I know this question, we always have to throw in a few real hard ones, right? Do you have a favorite sorcery artist?
No, because like the beauty of sorcery, broad stylistic diversity, and I have a diverse taste. So I truly don't have a favorite now.
It's very political, Dean. He's done this before. That was an expert answer.
I could guarantee that was going to be the answer. The fact that he works with all the artists anyway. Yeah. I mean, he was never going to let that slip.
Nah. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I'd try Italy, you know.
You'd try Italy?
Italian. So yeah, my heart's in Italy, I'd say. It's pretty sweet.
I love that. Great food there. So, yeah. All right. And the last one for me is, what is your go-to food spot in New York? Now, I know you're not currently there, but what is the go-to spot there?
Well, it would be like the neighborhood area I grew up. You know, there was like we would ride our bikes down to this little village area, so to speak, little shops and stuff, and hang out with my buddies. So, you know, the childhood memories is what life's all about, when we had that innocence and purity, and we didn't have to deal with all the BS in life that comes later.
Was it pizza? Like, I just feel like it's New York, right?
There was a pizza shop. Yeah,
and it
I
has
actually
to
went
be
back
pizza.
last weekend. One of my friends, good friend's mom passed away, so I wanted to pay my respects, and we reunited at the pizza shop in town with like a handful of my buddies.
I love that,
amazing,
man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna hit you with a couple. What's the biggest misconception about TCG collectors?
Collectors?
Yep.
I think there's this kind of weird war. I know I'm violating your one-word answer, but
And look, that's kind of an open-ended question. It entails. You're allowed to elaborate.
I think there's like this stupid infighting sometimes of like players versus collectors. Like players will look down on collectors who don't play, And then you don't see it the other way around. Like collectors don't really disparage players. Like, great, you want to play? Fine. But not everyone has the time to play or whatever, you know, like we might, like me, I would like to, but I just don't have the time. So I think, like I always say, people should enjoy the hobby however they want, playing, collecting, even speculating, investing. There's nothing wrong with that either, you know? So like, I think there's just bias in it, but all are acceptable and all are important. So I don't know what the misconception of, I think just kind of like the faction between interest categories is sometimes overstated as well, because oftentimes people have multiple levels of interest, and that's healthy. And I think all three are healthy and important.
No, I like that. I like that. What's the next big thing in the world of TCGs?
Next big thing. It really doesn't change that much. I think there's like a lot of new games coming out and doing more of the same.
Well, Altered is rewriting the landscape, right? I don't know if you've looked into that too much or not.
Not much.
But it's very heavy in the digital space in terms of pulling a card and then it being a unique. It is genuinely unique in terms of its QR code and you owning that card and being able to then print however many copies of that card you want, and foil variants and stuff. So that's probably changed the landscape, but whether it's a success or not, we obviously need time to tell.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting and unique.
Foil cards or original art prints?
Original art print, like a print of an art?
Or like an artist proof, I guess. A foil card or an original artist proof. Which one do you prefer?
Well, I always prefer original art over mass-produced machined cards. So that's easy, no-brainer.
Fair enough. New York City subway or yellow cabs?
I'll go a yellow cab. It's a little cleaner, a little more...
Is the subway really that bad in New York?
I don't know. That's New York City. I never lived in New York City. I was in upstate, so it was more rural.
But do you spend some time down there in New York City, though? Like, you ever blow through there a bit?
It's not bad. They have a good system. I mean, that's how most people get around. You have to there. Traffic's insane.
Do you sleeve every single card, or do you live a little bit dangerously?
I sleeve all the valuable ones, yeah. Binder, yeah, sleeve, yeah.
You know, I have a 5,000 count bulk box full of alpha bulk, and every single card is sleeved. Every single one.
That's extreme. I don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember opening it. I was like, nah, this is going to be something one day. I'm going to sleeve all these up, put them in this box, and forget about it.
Nice. Maybe we will.
If you had to, well, I guess if it wasn't Sorcery, would it be Magic the Gathering or Pokemon?
It'd be Magic, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up with. I don't have a nostalgic connection to Pokemon, but I think Pokemon's actually a better speculative investment. So.
Yeah, it seems to be, in terms of TCGs, the one that you can't go wrong with. Doesn't matter what set it is. That's been proven by trash sets in the past. If you give Pokemon enough time, it's going to go up. Yeah. And to finish off, Van Gogh or Bob Ross?
I mean, Bob Ross is the GOAT. You gotta go Bob Ross.
Good old Bob Ross.
He influenced a lot of artists, you know, so you gotta tip the cap.
Speaking of, do you reckon there's any Bob Ross artwork that might fit into a sorcery set somewhere in the future?
Yeah, that would be, and I don't know if that's old enough to be public domain use, or if you'd have to license it, or even if that's possible, like how they'd go about that. But if it were possible, I think it would be stylistically fitting. Yeah, for like a Atlas site card. He did a lot of beautiful landscape work. So yeah, that would be cool. Like one thought I had, I want to spend a minute on this. So I want him to like continue to lean into not just the Magic Alpha artists licensing, or but maybe have a curio of like a 1800s era artwork, or 1700s, 1600s, like some of the true legends that influenced today's modern artists stylistically, that really paved the way for the evolution of art, like a Rembrandt or something like that. Have a curio card of that to not only pay homage to the 90s era of TCGs, but also, you know, put the stamp on this game as a significant art project that tries to educate people on art through TCGs. I think would be really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think it's probably something, hopefully, that we see in the future. Because there's some really cool stuff that springs to mind that I think personally would fit the bill for what sorcery is and what it's trying to do. So, but Mike, that's a good chat, mate. We're just approaching 2 hours. We'll probably cut out a little bit here and there so we can minimize it. But that was a mammoth chat, mate, and we really, really, really appreciate you getting up, 1, at 4 a.m., 2, putting up with 45 minutes of audio issues, and then 3, hanging out for 2 hours to chat. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I really appreciate talking to you guys. I like your show. You're doing a great job. Real interesting content. And I'm honored to be on. Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Mike. We'll have you back without a doubt. But keep smashing it and keep doing what you do. And I'm expecting a Grim Reaper artist proof in the mail from you as a gift soon. So thanks for that.
But actually, really quick, the artist proofs for Vasily Ermolayev were lost in shipment. He has no artist proofs. So he never received them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's tragedy. I hope he's reaching out to the company and they can find a way to do like a special one-off print run for him. But there's no Grim Reaper artist proofs except like the top 4 backers. I was one of the top 4 backers of Kickstarter. I guess that didn't come up in conversation. So we got a complete set of artist proofs. They're all blank white backs, but we have all 403 cards, which is insane. Like I joke that like well, it's not that much of a joke, but I have more like original art and paintings than actual cards. And part of the reason for that is like my dream was to be like the childhood friend that had like stacks, like the full collection of all the grails, right? Mm-hmm. But then when Eric said he's doing foils for everything and the pull rates are super rare, I was crushed. I was like, oh shit, maybe I'll just walk away from this game. Like before it came out on Kickstarter, I was like, if I can't have it all, what's the point? But then when I top back the Kickstarter, I naturally had like an unconventional master set because I have a full set of all the foil uncut sheets. There's only 4 of those. And then I have the full artist proofs, non-foils with blank backs. So between the two, I kind of have like a master set. The only thing I don't have is all the curios. And I've acquired like 9 or 10 of those. But yeah, so I didn't go hard on cards. I went hard on paintings. You know, everything people say they can't afford stuff. This is too expensive. That is too expensive. But then I see them buying boxes of alpha, or like they own several Philosopher's Stone alpha cards. Right? It's always a matter of opportunity cost. You could sell one thing and go for another. I just personally chose to go for art, which gives me the best feels. You know, to have original art, I think is pretty special and exciting.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks again, Mike. Really appreciate it, and we'll definitely get you back at some point.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.
Take care.
Dino, what an amazing guest. Someone on who appreciates art as much as us.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, wasn't it? I've wanted to speak to Mike for a while, and you know, the timing obviously is pretty good with Arthurian Legends due within the next week or so. So it was a really good time to have him on. But you can tell his unwavering passion and love for what he does is why he's obviously at the top of that game. I love the way that you talk about sorcery now for someone that had no interest, or not no interest, I wouldn't say, but had no experience with sorcery or any sort of want to experience it. I can see now that you look at it in a totally different way.
Yeah, that's a lot of that is credit to the work that he's doing, because as part of, you know, this interview, researching, going through the Collector Arthouse website, looking through the artists. I mean, he's done so much work that I've never seen in a TCG before, where you can go on and find out these artists. You can connect to them. I've got favorite cards. I don't even own a single sorcery card yet. And I've already got favorite ones out of alpha and beta that I like.
Yeah, I should probably give you one, eh?
Yeah, that Hollow Elementalist, I'll take that one.
That's long gone, brother. That is long gone.
But yeah, and also just again a massive thanks to Mike for 4 a.m. wake up. Yeah. Like I know I said it a few episodes ago, but you got to pinch yourself sometimes at type of people we're getting to meet doing this, and for him to go to bed earlier, told the kids and the wife, you know, like I need to get up at 4 a.m. and do this. Like that's what this is all about, you know. It's really really cool. So.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks again, Mike. You're an absolute weapon. You're one of the best. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this episode. As you would have heard us mention at the top of the episode, there's some interesting things happening with Metazoo right now. So there's never been a better time for you guys to call up via the Hobby Hero segment for the next episode, and maybe even make it Metazoo themed. Come at us with a few Metazoo questions because we're going to be talking about it. I can promise you that. So the link in the description, the SpeakPipe link, go give a click on that. Get over to our Instagram at @the_hobby_pod. Vote on the Hobby Rumble because we're going to find out the result of that in the next episode. We appreciate all the likes, comments, and shares, guys. It means a lot to us. We're really looking forward to keep going. And episode 14 in the books. Kern, do you got anything you want to add?
Rosetta, I love flesh and blood.
Might be the last time I ever ask him that question. That is Wheels Up, and we are out of here, guys. We will see you on the next one.